Corporate conspiracies, umbral realms, plot twist, read the words projected on a screen as we walked in. I had no idea what that was all about, but I was already hooked. The Glasswalker Thurge known as Buzzwords was living up to his deed name. They made us sit as he wasted no time going into his PowerPoint presentation. He pulled up the next slide, which detailed the USB key, its internal structure, and the protection they'd used to make sure it was spiritually safe. How they scanned it in ways both magical and mundane. A lot of that was technical and went over my head. The next slide, however. Here, you can see the scans we made reveal there used to be a spirit bound to this. We assume a Bane, probably the very one that possessed our friend and was later killed by your pack. Good job, that. Psycho-Machiae are nothing but trouble. He quickly went up a slide to show a picture of the creature, pleasing no one, because we did not need to see that again, and then returned to his previous slide. As you know, the contents of the USB key are horrifying, but they are not meant to terrorize. He skipped the slide with the Bane to one where the files were listed in order they would appear when the key is first opened, along with small screenshots of the videos contained. You can see the videos are gradually getting more and more gory. The first few videos are designed to play into a teenager's morbid curiosity. What is death? What does it really look like? What happens to the body? He slided to the next video. See how the second video focuses on the eyes as the person, well, passes. These are meant to hook viewers, to fascinate and condition them. Only then, once you've taken a liking to it, does it get really gruesome. He showed several slides of escalating violence to illustrate his point. This here is the point where the Bane gets excited. This is what it vibes with. And if the viewer does too, then it's only a matter of time before possession begins. It's brilliant, really. Terrifying, but brilliant. Okay, I said. Sarah said she knew about movies on VHS some time ago that did the same. No offense, but we sort of knew, or at least guessed most of what you're saying. So, is this just the evolution of that technique? Is there any way you could help guide us to who's behind it? How to stop it? Glad you asked, Buzzword said, immediately going back to his presentation. See here, in the later videos, the last 4 to be precise, look at these screenshots and compare them to these pictures. The next few slides made parallels with news clips and other media, all leading to the conclusion that some of these videos were either reenactment or straight up footage of murders that could not have been filmed. He went into some technical mumbo-jumbo I didn't get, but it led to the conclusion that those last 4 videos were actually filmed in the Umbra. God, I wish I was kidding. The Umbra? Asked Gloria, who joined us on the way here. The Atrocity Realm, to be specific. Bile rose up in my throat at the mention. I'm not entirely sure when I shifted Krynos, but my chair was a wreck, and my claws had dug into the table. I growled. I tried to calm myself down as best as I could. I tried to express I was sorry for my outburst, but someone just brought up a new chair, and the marks on the table were already disappearing. Somehow. Ben put a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Don't worry. It happens, we know. Buzzwords, back on topic, just looked up to me calmly and said, I take it. Some of you are familiar. I took a deep breath, switched back down to Hamid, or tried to. Pretty sure I only managed Glabro. Close enough, I guess. And got to explaining. The most sickening place in the entire Umbra. And the Umbra is a big place. It's infinite, really, so that's saying a whole lot. The Atrocity Realm is attuned to pain, to torture, of any and all kinds. It reaches out to all the times and all the places resonating this particular brand of evil, and it takes it home. Walking through that place, it reaches into your soul, and it never lets go. It's a winding place, corridors and corridors, taking you from one horrific tableau after another. I say tableau, but it's not that. Don't picture a painting. This isn't some Geiger shit. It's more like a scene you can't get out of. You walk into a moment. It happens before you again and again and again and again. Forever. It doesn't ever end. And it's all real. This shit happened somewhere. Their anguish is preserved. Am I to understand that some sick fuck took a camera into the Umbra, purposefully went there, browsed through the scenes until they found one they liked? They filmed it a couple of times to get the best angles, edited the thing, put it on a USB key, and fucking distributed it to kids? Someone brought me another new chair. Probably Ben. I honestly don't know. That's exactly what I'm saying, said Buzzword. Actually, no. It's worse. They also bound Baines in the key and then gave it to kids. Gloria left. Just straight up left. I wasn't sure the door would hold. I saw Ben's furrowed brow, wasn't sure either, but it did. Gaia blessed buildings constructed with werewolves in mind. Why don't we take 5? Suggested someone I did not know. Still don't, really. We did just that, but 5 really became 20. We found Gloria in some kind of gym where she was giving hell to some poor around who'd volunteered to spar. I mean, he was sort of holding his own, kinda, but it was brutal. After a while, he suggested some reinforced machines she could go all out on. You know, things that don't feel pain. Seemed like a good idea, so I joined in. Eventually, we found ourselves back into the room. Let's say better prepared for the rest of the conversation. I couldn't help but notice that Ben called in another Garou to stand near Gloria. Probably just in case that rage flared again. If she noticed, she didn't say. Has anyone ever heard of Slaughterhouse Video? Asked Buzzword a mere few seconds after we were all sitting. Jane was too young, Gloria was Garou-born, and Firehound was Lupus. Like, seriously, he might as well have just looked straight at me and asked. Yeah, I replied. They were a straight-to-video type of production company back in the day, specializing in super gross, gory stuff. Slasher movies, mostly. Bingo, he intoned. Back in the 80s and 90s, we noticed a pattern. See if you can spot it here. He moved back and forth across the next slides, where we could see several reported gorehound cases from the era, along with the list of their favorite movies based on data taken from internet forum posts and video store renting history. All of those were published by Slaughterhouse, answered Jane. Every single fucking last one of them. Which takes us to the corporate conspiracy part of our little presentation. We looked into Slaughterhouse over the last few decades. Far as we could tell, they were involved in a lot of gorehound cases back in the day. Not every case was solved, mind you, but every time a Bane was found to original from a tape, it was one of theirs. That's not a coincidence. We conducted interviews and did extensive research. Things just didn't add up, and most of the movies were on the up and up, too. It seemed like they somehow just happened to have Banes bound into them. I mean, a human production company should not know how to do that, should it? No, they should not, I intoned, grasping more or less where he was headed. Put those aside for now. Let's talk about Black Dog Company. Ever heard of the tabletop RPG Lycanthrope The Rapture? Fuck. Yeah, I said. Yeah, I played once or twice before my first change, I answered shamefully. Has it ever occurred to you after your change that maybe it hit a little too close to home? Yeah, it always bothered me. It was like, did someone breach the veil big time? Told some designer about us or something? Could be, Buzzword agreed. But let's put that aside for now. Please, look at these. He cycled through some pictures of dead people. All of these people were murdered. The killer? Folks of ravishing beauty, one and all. Fummery, more often than not. Just like Gorehounds and Slaughterhouse, we were able to figure out that all of the killers used beauty products from Siren's Cosmetics. Okay, what are you saying? Interrupted Gloria, who'd heard enough. Buzzword looked at her and resigned to skip several more slides, where you could see more company names. Names like Magadon Pharmaceutical, Endron Oil Company, and many, many more. Even O'Toole's, a family fast food joint I more or less liked. All of those companies are owned by fronts and shell companies. Serious digging into it over the last several decades often led to nothing. Home offices disappear overnight, entire servers of data go offline at inconvenient times. We can't track it all back to the source. Some corporate entity is working very hard to keep all of this secret. A huge, secret conglomerate. Don't think Apple. Think about what company owns Apple, and then think about who owns them. Whoever they are big and made of money, basically untouchable. I personally think they're responsible for, well, all of this, he said, going back and forth across a large swath of slides. Whether or not I'm right, he added, the fact is, something is spreading the worm's corruption and using some corporations to do it. And there's not much we can do. Okay, I said, how do we play into this? This isn't some corporation. These are USB keys distributed in a school. Actually, you got me there. Because that's where the pattern breaks. There were too many similarities not to point it out, but you're right. This isn't what they do. Maybe whomever is behind this used to work at Slaughterhouse or grew up on those movies. I'm sure there's a connection. We just need to find it. We'll send out feelers and tell you what we find. Hopefully it will help you out. Wait, growled Firehound as we were getting up to regroup, rethink, and consider what we learned. Corporation are human things. These are Umbra things. Yes, they are, Buzzwords confirmed. Humans can't go to the Umbra, Firehound continued. That's right, the Glasswalker agreed. Well, actually, no. Some, very few humans can. We know there are people who can alter reality with the sheer power of their will. They can force reality to match their perspective. It's too much power for one person to have, but they are out there. Those can do what we can do and a whole lot more. This whole thing could be orchestrated by such mages, or maybe we're too late and this is a scheme hatched decades ago by Black Spiral Dancers and they're much further ahead than us. Even us Glasswalkers. We don't know, Firehound. We just don't. Either way, make no mistake. This, he said, pointing to the slides, is the most dangerous enemy the Garou nation has ever faced. And with that, we split up. What else could we do? It was time to refocus on things we could do, like Edith. I mean, not literally. Damn it. What I mean is, we had to talk to her again. The key told us a lot about the potential scope of this whole thing, but not how to handle it. She'd gone through enough and clearly didn't want to have anything else to do with this, but there was no getting around it. We needed to know exactly how she got her hands on it and who was distributing them. We began preparations for the trip back. There wasn't a moment to waste, but we did take one detour to give Jane a chance to chat with our old friend Stormy Pete about the Bone Gnawer tribe. This has been A Rite to Remember Season 2, Episode 9, a series of lore videos for Legacy Werewolf the Apocalypse presented through an immersive narrative. Pentex. Frickin' Pentex. Buzzword isn't wrong. This is an enemy the Garou are ill-equipped to fight. Most employees don't know they're working for an evil corporation run by actual monsters. Those folks flipping burgers at O'Toole's aren't much more evil than anyone doing the same at McDonald's in the real world. Their biggest sin is serving unhealthy crap, but that's not exactly worth getting ripped apart by a werewolf, is it? The essence of what Pentex is as an enemy is insidious and pervasive, and occasionally horrifically in your face. But unless you're far from prying eye, like in the Amazon where they have entire tactical teams of fummery waging war on changing breeds with military gear, most of the time Pentex attack from the sides. Or worse, sometimes they don't even attack you at all. O'Toole doesn't attack werewolves directly, they just let people slowly grind their health down by themselves. And on occasion, that might lead to someone self-deprecating to the point that it attracts a bane, working for the urgeworm of despair or hatred. That's just bonus points. Double bonus if it becomes a fummerai and goes on a rampage, spreading even more dark emotions for the urgeworms to feed on. In short, Pentex mostly just works through humanity to bring about the end times, to do the worm's bidding. Some of it is targeted at werewolves though, usually by way of their unknowing kinfolks. What's a werewolf to do when they find out that their nephew is playing with Avalon toys, with their Action Bill figurine, watching Action Bill TV shows, all carefully designed to teach kids that blowing stuff up is cool, that violence is cool, and that nature can go fuck itself? All in all, know this: Pentex is adaptable. There's a subsidiary for every need a storyteller might have. If the children playing with toys angle isn't your style, you can have Endron spill oil or Magadon release a new drug. Just remember that while those companies have evil agendas, they still need to be profitable, and they still need to be allowed to operate. If Endron spill oils on purpose 5 times a week, even Pentex won't be able to keep that show going. If every drug that Magadon releases turns everyone into zombies, it might achieve one big KPI for some manager somewhere, but the corporation is burnt, done for. In other words, most of what they do is actually good. Most of it provides a service people need, something people like, so that people willingly consume the products and slowly contribute to making everything so much worse. It's not about nuking the world, it's about boiling it alive so slow it doesn't notice. If you were paying attention back in October of 2022, you may be confused. The World of Darkness team working on W5 did a Q&A and spoke of Pentex as a very different thing now, then proceeded to describe them as they've always been. That Q&A was describing Legacy Pentex as obviously an openly evil mustache-twirling caricatures, whereas now in W5 they'll be working through fronts. Don't worry, you're not alone. To be fair, Legacy Pentex did have that caricature feel, but in the art, and in 1 or 2 subsidiaries. If your understanding of Legacy Pentex comes from a quick glance and looking at pictures, then yeah, I can see how you'd end up with such a view. Actually reading up on Pentex would have told the World of Darkness team that their new and original take wasn't. Still, the actual book does have some significant differences. For starters, we no longer have names or in-depth description of any of the subsidiaries/fronts. Well, that's not true. There are 3 bullet points with about 20 words of description each, and then the book just says to use real-world companies. The descriptions of those 3 bullet points don't tell us much beyond their names and what businesses they're in. We don't know how they approach their evil goals or anything of substance, really. Like most things in W5, it's up to the troupe to make up their own substance. Now, whether that's a positive or a negative will depend from one table to the next. A lot of folks don't care about lore, and that's okay. But if you care about lore, and if you're listening to this, you probably do, then that's a giant disappointment. Despite my massive misgivings about how this new World of Darkness believes lore is actually detrimental to play, yes, they told me as much in their Discord, I must admit, they also did some nice things. Such as the other big difference found in the book. Pentex now follows their own spiritual patron, Fly, just like a Garou tribe. And just like flies, they're feeding off the dying corpse of Gaia. Pentex takes and takes and takes, without giving a damn about the fact that they are accelerating her death. And that, more than anything else, is the only reason I'm somewhat okay about them not having big subsidiaries anymore. This new Pentex operates differently. They build a corporation, and then they use it to suck a resource dry. After that, they don't care. They abandon the corporation, they sell what they can, and they move on. They are not building to last anymore. They are just building to take. They're all about the bottom line. It's an interesting fresh coat of paint, and I'm very much here for that new spiritual side of Pentex. Even so, a page or two of ready-to-use fronts with some actual substance just for inspiration was not a big ask, or a difficult bare minimum line to clear. I'm just saying the core book has 3 different Umbra/Spirit sections that spend half of their word count saying the exact same things that they've already said. Or maybe they could have wasted less ink repeating just how bad werewolves are at everything and/or that they are monsters actually. Maybe if they'd done that, they would have had some page count left to cover something that's actually useful. Like a few sample Pentex fronts, just saying. Overall though, despite this flaw, I have to admit there was always too much satire and goofiness with Legacy Pentex. There's literally a tabletop RPG branch called Black Dog, with NPC based on the real White Wolf developers and their real lives. Get it? Black Dog, White Wolf. Don't get me wrong, it's hilarious, but is it what you want in a horror game? And the boardroom stories of the higher-ups of Pentex often ended up being more important and taking more space in Pentex conversation than anything actually likely to come into play. That phenomenon is called scope creep, as Justin Achille, lead designer of W5, put it in a conversation on Discord, and on that I find myself in full agreement with him. Legacy was filled with scope creep. This new take definitely should have covered fronts better. That's just useful. That's street level, and that helps storytellers come up with ideas and stories. But I am glad that they dispensed with the silliness and the bloated boardroom lore. That wasn't at the street level W5 is trying to aim at. I mean, I know it had hordes of fans, but it was indeed out of scope. More importantly, what W5 did right is put Pentex's subtlety front and center. They may have painted an incorrect picture of Legacy Pentex in that interview, but it was a very common incorrect picture of Legacy Pentex, and W5 made sure not to leave room for it. Pentex is now exactly what it was supposed to be, and that's a good thing. For more information on the complex topic of Pentex and how it can be used in your games, there are a number of books you can refer to. The Books of the Worms usually cover Pentex despite the fact that they are entire books already dedicated specifically to them, namely Subsidiaries, A Guide to Pentex, and Monkey Wrenchers. There's also some unique angles in the book Freak Legion, A Player's Guide to Fummery. For example, that's the only place that mentions Slaughterhouse and Siren Cosmetics for some reason. Come back next episode for the tribe the Bone Gnawers. This one will be special.